You're listening to the Forward Thinking Podcast, powered by FCCS.
I really want to welcome you all. This is the launch of the Forward Thinking Podcast, hosted and powered by FCCS. I'm your host, Stephanie Barton, Vice President of Marketing and Communications for FCCS. Today on the podcast, pleasure of welcoming Ryan Avery. Thank you, Ryan, for helping us with some technical difficulties. Ryan is a great partner to us. He's been partnering with us for the Go From A to the Leader Virtual Strategic Communications Program. We wrapped up the first cohort yesterday. He also has been the keynote speaker at many of our conferences. But today we're talking specifically about world record goals and breaking history with Ryan. Welcome again, Ryan. Thanks for the little bit of assistance there, and sorry for the trouble.
I got you. We got you. It happens in the virtual world, right? We gotta be flexible. All good.
Excellent. Well, Ryan, you've been working with us as a speaker in our conferences for, it's been about 5 years. And as I mentioned, you partnered with us on this virtual learning program that couldn't have launched at a better time, literally right in the midst of the craziness in the world. Yeah. And some may know you, and some listening in have been part of that program or they've been at a conference. But for the rest of the audience, can you give us a brief introduction to you, Ryan Avery?
Yes. So I would say my professional journey started, I used to work at Special Olympics. I was the director of marketing. Hey, what's up, Stephanie? I was the director of marketing over there for years. And then what happened for me is my best friend, he took his whole life savings and he put it into a big dream of his to start this film and create this film. And he lost all of his money. He lost his good paying job. And I take him out to lunch and he's like, Ryan, don't do what they tell you. Do not follow your big dreams. It's so hard. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's so depressing. And I was like, what's going on? He's like, Ryan, what is the hardest thing you've ever had to do? And I'm like, I don't know. And I felt really bad that I didn't have an answer from my best friend, that I couldn't tell him, like, I'd done things that were hard, but not something that was like the hardest. And so it put me in this like little bit of a spiral. And I, anytime I lose it, I always like lose myself in the YouTube vortex. I'm like, let's learn how to bake a cake. And I always like stupidly watch YouTube videos. And I am watching this video where this person is going for what's called the World Championship of Public Speaking. And I remember someone telling me in the past that people were more afraid of public speaking, or people, it was the hardest thing to do. And so I was like, fine, I will win that contest. I will win that championship. And, lo and behold, 8 months later, there's 30,000 people from 116 countries that compete for it. I win the contest of a variety of different things. We can talk about that story if you want, but I win that. And then the next day I wake up to 269 emails asking me to speak. And I was like, what do you want to hear from me? Why do you want to hear from me? I don't do anything. And I didn't know this was a job. I didn't know that people would pay me to speak. But what I quickly learned is people don't pay you to speak. They pay you for your strategies. And so the very first couple years, I'm sorry to all the clients that I spoke to, because I was y'all. I was so bad. And so I've been doing it now for 8 years full time. And I'm grateful. I'm grateful for this opportunity.
I can't even imagine you being bad, because I've seen you speak a number of times. It's always been knocked it out of the park. You actually had to deal with adversity at one of our conferences. I remember the AV didn't work. Speaking of, AV not working, but you just rolled right along with it. You'd practiced enough. You'd done this. You were confident, and I think I've told you, I didn't really notice a difference from when you had the PowerPoint or when it was just you up on stage speaking. It's been powerful each time, but I want to dive in a little bit more to these world records, because it's so fascinating to me. And it's not, you're not doing something totally bizarro like world's longest fingernails, obviously. I love how you
that would be so bad if I was like, hi, I'm a keynote speaker of the world's longest fingernails. That'd be so bad.
Yes, that would not be good. But you connect your world records to community events or supporting your community or supporting other efforts. So tell us, how did that come about?
Well, I have been lucky to break 6 world records and attempt a lot more. We'll just say that. But I've broken 6. I've attempted a lot more. It really started back in high school. Actually, the very first one I did is there was this thing that McDonald's used to do where if you brought in like Coke can tabs, they would donate like half of a penny or something to Ronald McDonald House. And so my friend and I thought, like, what if we collected the most amount of those and brought them into McDonald's, and we're just like, boom. And then we could also do a world record where we like make the longest chain necklace of Coke can tabs. And so for like a whole school years, we're just like digging through trash and we're like asking our friends with these Coke tabs. And my parents were probably disgusted by it because we kept them in our garage, and we collected thousands and thousands and thousands of these. We submitted to Guinness World Records. We're like, yeah, we broke a world record. And they were like, oh, sorry, no, we're not going to accept that. And I was like, you accept the one where the guy pushes a nose a mile with an orange, and that's the world record, but like mine isn't. And I got frustrated. And for real, for years, I didn't do anything else because I was so taken back by that no. I had spent energy into it. I had put so much time into it, and someone told me no. I mean, yeah, I raised thousands and thousands of dollars for Ronald McDonald House, but I was mad that someone told me no, which is like, now that I'm thinking about it, I was mad at my son this morning because I was telling him no and he was crying about it. So I was pretty much being a toddler. And what I learned a lot from that experience. Like I learned that there's a lot of planning that goes involved. Like you should be reaching out and asking before you do things. And then what happened is I met this really cool videographer. His name is Kaz Rubacki. And I hadn't thought about it for years because I was so thrown off by that. And I asked him and I said, because it was the first visual that I saw of his that I go, he's the guy that I would love to do this with. So we created this experience called the Breaking History Show, Breaking History TV. And we break world records around big issues affecting local communities. And so what we did is I took everything I learned from that weird experience in high school and I started talking to communities to see, hey, what is something that you could use help with? What is something that people aren't talking about? What is an issue that's being affected? And I started listening, and then I started seeing, oh wow, like here's one of the last ones that can I talk about one of the last ones I did? Do I have time for that?
Oh, please, yeah.
So one of the last ones, I live in Colorado. FCCS is in Colorado, and so what I was starting to do is I was starting to notice a lot more like little crosses on the road with like bikes, and like people were saying never forget, and I was like, man, what's happening here? And so I contacted a lawyer, and she was like, there's more bike deaths and accidents in Colorado than ever. And I was like, how? We live in Colorado, like we have bike lanes, we have all these things. And so I started asking, I started listening, and people didn't understand bike lane rules or safety or any of that. So then I looked up some world records around bikes, and I saw that the longest cycling class was 25 hours at the time. And I was like, oh, this is a great one to give to somebody else. So I call this person up and I'm like, hey, I've got this awesome idea. I'll totally help you coordinate it, put it all together. We want to do a show. I'll be the host. And then she goes, I'll do it, but you have to do it with me. And I was like, oh, no. I don't bike. And thank you. Obviously, I don't bike. No, thank you. And she was like, if you're serious about helping, you need to be involved. And she taught me a really important lesson that you can't get people involved if you yourself aren't going to step forward. So yeah. I'm like, okay, great, but I'm going to need at least a year to train. And so we train, and about 2 months into it, someone breaks the world record at 27 hours. So now I have to break it for 28 hours. Like the concept of this is so like when you've been biking for 12 hours, you have to bike for another 16 hours. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't compute. So we break the world record. We do it. All 25 of us complete it. It's an unbelievable experience. But there's things that happen with these world records that always teach me something within life. I always am able to give back to good causes. It helps me be a better listener. Like doing something at the extreme like that gives me so much value. Like it might sound like I'm adding value, but really like I'm getting so much out of it. You know, like even it set me up for 2020. Because that concept of biking for 12 hours and knowing you have to go for 16, you know, working on a project for 8 months and then realizing something has to change and now you've got to completely change it for 6 months. I have that mental state now because of that one world record. So that's how they came to be, listening, helping other people, looking at the communities of how I could give back, and a lot of lessons along the way.
It's funny that you mentioned the biking one, because you had been in the office and we were talking about the Go From A to the Leader program and launching it. And I'm getting ready in the morning and I walk by the TV and I went, That's Ryan Avery on your bike.
You saw me on TV? Oh,
Yeah.
that's cool.
Yeah, it was on the local news. So we were excited for you. But
Cool.
so that's your inspiration and how you connect this to community events. Obviously, world records, it's like the upper echelon of setting goals and really accomplishing the goals. So talk about, how do you create, guideposts? How do you create a plan after you decide, okay, this is the goal, this is the dream? How do you create a plan to actually achieve it, accomplish it?
Okay, that's a good question. And we talked about this a little yesterday on the A to V series. And first off, it's that, right? So it's understanding all of us need to have this mental shift of going from A to V. Okay, that's how I live my life. So I don't want to be a dad, I want to be the dad. I don't want to be a speaker, I want to be the speaker. I don't want this to be a podcast, I want it to be the podcast. What's up? I want it to be the. So first off, if I'm teaching the, I can't be like, hey, I'm going to make and raise $5 for this organization. Like, that's not being the, right? And it's not about money. It's about putting yourself in the shoes of what the would do. And so that's also where the world records come from. And so what I do is I've created this thing that I use, and I call them the 5 Ds of accomplishment. And this is how I do it. This is literally stage by stage of what I do to accomplish my big dreams. Run my business, everything. Because the very first D that we need to do is we need to dream. Okay, we want to dream. A lot of people get stuck there. A lot of people, they live through life, they go through it, and they don't even take a little bit of time and see how they could raise that element of making more, helping more, giving more, doing more. And so it's the dream first, okay? Once you've dreamed and you've thought about all the things you want to do, the second step we want to do is we want to decide. Okay, a lot of people dream. We all know some dreamers, and they're just always up in their head and in their clouds. But it's those who decide that this is what I'm going to work on. This is what I'm going to do and put my energy into it. Okay. After I've decided, what I do is I design the plan. That's the third D. I design, here's what I need. Here's how long it's going to take. Here's the plan of in which I'm going to go from not biking to biking 28 hours. Okay. And so after that design, the fourth one comes into play. And again, this is where it trips up a lot of people too. And that fourth one is develop. You've got to develop the team. You got to develop the skills. You have to develop the mindset. You've got to practice. You got to figure it out. You can't go and sit on a bike and bike for 28 hours without developing skills first. And we've all seen this. You can plug it in with anything. Authors, right? There's people who dream about writing a book. There's people who dream about writing a book and say they're going to write a book. And then there's people who say they're going to write a book, and then they write the book. And then this is where the 50 comes in. That will distinguish if you are A or the, or if you can accomplish anything you want. And the 50 is deliver. You got to deliver it. You got to hit publish. You got to get on the bike. Okay, if you're running a 5K, you got to get at the starting line where you hear, right? You've got to make sure that you deliver. And it's sad to me to hear friends or family or strangers say they have all these ideas and they have this book, but they're too afraid to share it, or they're too afraid to try it because other people are faster than them or smarter or better or more. I learned a very important distinction between a leader and the leader. And I thought for a minute, these people who had more than me or who were smarter than me or better than me, I thought they were that way because they had more money, they had more time, and they had resources. No. I learned a very important distinction. They are and they have all those things because they got those things. So when they accomplished it, that's when they got more money. That's when they had more relationships. That's when they had more. So them doing it gave them that. They didn't have it at first. And so that was a really important distinction to me, is we all have access to it. Now, are we following those 5 Ds?
Yeah. And as I think about those, and we've talked about this before, but sharing with the group, you kind of have to tap into a little bit of a different skill set or toolkit to move through those 5 Ds. Like, I'm pretty creative, so I can dream up all kinds of things. I want to do all kinds of goals. And, I went through the 5 Ds to when we launched the Go From A to the program. And when it got to deliver, I was sweating, was nervous. That was terrifying.
100%. Yeah.
It's like, this is rubber meets the road time. Do I have it?
Oh my gosh, it's so true. Because what you'll do is you'll be like, yeah, I'm going to bike 28 hours. And then you get on the bike and you're like, wait, what? I'm gonna bike 20. And there's so many different ones. Like if you want a headache, try to get a park permit in New York City for 9/11. Okay, that was one of the hardest world records I've ever had because so many different things that we're trying to go with it. It's constant. It's never going to be done. I think there's a thing there too. Is like it's if I could add another D to the whole thing, it would be dissect. So after the world record, it's dissect. Where could you have dreamed better? Where could you have done a better job in dissecting to see if you could have decided something differently or developed different skills? And that's what I do is I dissect it and I build off of it every single time. So maybe there's 60s. That's a lot though. That's a lot.
Well, when we talk about that, we've talked about, you've mentioned, I mean, we talked about the bike one specifically, and you've mentioned some other world records you have. You have a great website. So if people want to learn more, they can. It's out there. And I've gone through it and I love looking at the pictures and seeing you and Chelsea breaking some together. That's really exciting. His wife's name is Chelsea. But tell me about a time, you knew I was going to ask this. Tell me about a time when it didn't happen. You didn't set the world record. And what did what was the mistake and what did you learn from that?
Man, all right. So there are like 800 of them that I have done that I haven't accomplished. One of the hardest ones for me was one of the very first things that I did after winning the world championship is I listened to people and they said, you got to write a book. And I was like, I don't really want to write a book, but I did. And I wrote this book. And again, I wanted to go from A to B. And I wanted to, do I have time to tell like a full story, by the way?
Yeah, we've got 15 minutes left. Okay,
so let me tell this story then. So McGraw-Hill picks up the book. They're a big book publishing company in New York. And I fly to New York. I'm in New York. I'm on the 45th floor of the McGraw-Hill building. There's a whole bunch of executives and they're all talking about how they're going to market this book and they're coming up with really small ideas. And I don't like small ideas when my name is attached to something, obviously. I like big ideas. And so I speak up and go, hey, I don't like any ideas. Can we do something big with this book launch? And all the executives look at me and one points to me and he goes, what's your idea? And that's when I learned, do not speak up unless you have an idea. And luckily for me, though, there are a bunch of Guinness Book Records behind him. So I'm like, oh yeah, world records. Okay, why don't we break a world record with this book? And they're like, what world record would we break? And I recently came back from one of my favorite authors' book signings. So that's the first thing that pops in my head. I'm like, why don't we break the world record for the largest book signing in history? And they're like, you're crazy. I'm like, I know. And they're like, is that a thing? I'm like, I don't know. So they pull out the laptop and they type it into Guinness World Records. And it is, at that time, you had to sell and then you had to sign 2,000 books in 9 hours. And so they were like, cool, awesome idea, let's do it. But where would we do it? So I call Colorado State University, CSU, go Rams, where I go to college. And I say, hey, look, I've got this idea for this event. Every dollar that I make that day, I will donate back to first generation scholarship students. I'm the first person to go to college in my family. I want more people to go to college, especially at CSU. Would you be down for it? And they're like, yeah, we love the idea. Awesome. So everybody's on board. And 2 weeks before the big day, Guinness Book of World Records calls me. And they're like, hey, Ryan, we got a little update for you. I'm like, what's up? And they're like, someone broke the world record. I'm like, okay, by how many? And they said 3,000. And I'm like, oh, 3,000 is going to be tough. And they said, no, by 3,000. Oh, God. But now the new world record is 5,000 books you have to sell and sign in 12 hours. And I say, fine, okay. So I hang up. I call McGraw-Hill. I spend hours on the phone convincing them to believe in me. I even tell them I will break my wrist to break this world record. You can trust me. You can believe in me. And they go, okay, fine. So they print and they rush order 3,000 more books from New York all the way to Colorado State. And the day of event is massive. We've got 60 volunteers helping out with crowd controls. All the major media outlets are doing a story on me. My face is plastered all over campus. And that day I sell and I sign 1,300 books. I don't even reach the first world record of 2,000, okay? And it is a very crappy feeling. It's a very devastating feeling when you convince and you get hundreds of people on board with you and you're that pinnacle and you don't reach it. And it's a pretty crappy feeling. And I remember, I don't have social media or anything like that. So I remember people were posting things and sharing things and calling me, and Chelsea was like, hey, you got to deal with this. Like, people are posting things about you. And I go, okay, fine. So I start logging in. I start listening and I start reading, and everything that I hear is all positive. It's uplifting. It's cool. They're like, I can't believe you tried to do that, man. That was crazy. Try to do it again. And people from all over the world started sharing their big dreams with me. And they started sharing world records they wanted to break. And then this journalist, he writes this article that says, look what Ryan Avery didn't do. And I was like, okay, chill out, bro. But with that, it went viral and they made it a #1 bestseller. And they got it even cooler than that, translated in like 7 languages because China picked up the story and Saudi Arabia picked up the story. And that's what I want ultimately with that book, Speaker, Leader, Champion, is I want people to be able to speak so well they can champion any cause they believe in. But the biggest lesson that I learned from that entire experience is everybody gave me my definition of what it means to be the leader, and it's this. You are the leader when your actions inspire others to take action. That's when you're the leader. You're the leader when your actions inspire others to take action. So that one, although as devastating as it was, it inspired me and reminded me that my job is to take action. My job isn't to accomplish. Accomplish is the thing that I get from taking action occasionally, but that is what I'm supposed to do here. That's my purpose, is to take action. So that would be one of many lessons I've learned along the way, Stephanie, of breaking world records and dreaming a little bigger.
Well, I think that's so important. I mean, it's important always the take action message, but I think right now, and early on in April and May, when people had real things to rally around, whether it was at work, whether it was with their community, whether it was their family, things that they could at the end of the day look at and say, I took action on that. I made something happen today. I moved something forward, whether it was a project or I helped my kids. It was something you had at the end of the day that made you feel good in a time that was really, really hard. And I know for you, I mean, you used to fly around the country. I mean, you spoke, I don't know how many events in 2019 you spoke at.
Yeah, I was on the road 200 days a year. I used to do 75 live events a year. Last year was 13 countries. Yeah, I was like always on the road. Yeah.
So this happens. You and I talk, we're launching the Go From A to The program. So we're excited because we feel like it's so timely, but how else did you, reach out to your clients with all this experience and goal setting and taking action? How did you reach out to them? And what were some of the messages that you shared with them or used to inspire them?
So for me, what happened, literally, this was supposed to be like the best year. January rolled around, I was like, y'all, 2020, what? And then they were like, what? And I was like, oh my gosh, like literally within a week, my business disintegrated, literally. Like I had 65, I think, planned for the signed contract, boom. Within the week, they all got canceled, rug pulled under me. I didn't know what I was going to do. Like I have a family, I've got things going on. Like it was a really scary time. And all I did was take some advice, and instead of figuring out how I could make money or do things, all I simply started asking my clients was, what is one thing I could do that would help you right now? That's it. I said, what's one thing I could do that would help you right now? And then what happened is people said, hey, we want this, or this would be helpful, and I would create infographics, or I would do little videos, or I would create something, and then they would share it with their company. And they would go, oh, do you have more of what Ryan said? Or do you have any? And all of a sudden, this new business model came up, and I realized wait, I can share my content virtually? I can teach, and I go, well, yeah, Ryan, all this translates in a virtual world. And so they helped me understand this by simply asking that simple question, what's one thing I can do that would help you right now? And that really changed everything for me, that one question. And then I started developing content based off of what people were saying. And there would be people who would say the same thing. And I realized, 4 or 5 people are telling me this thing. Maybe I should develop a keynote around it. Oh yeah, how to motivate your team when it feels like the world is ending is like my #1 keynote this year. And because a lot of people don't know how to motivate their team in this new virtual world, how to keep people productive, how to keep people happy. And I was realizing, oh yeah, I have strategies for that. I've been working from home for 8 years. I can share that with you. So it was really, although I was asking the question, they were helping me. For me, that's one of the things that changed.
Yeah. As the leader and being able to, connect with your clients in this time, I love that you just reached out and that was the one thing you said. How can I help? I mean, it's how we should all be reaching out to our clients right now, and our family members, by the way. They might need a little support and a little help too.
Definitely.
When you talk about I mean, there's so many lessons that you go through and so many processes that you have. When you think about yourself as the leader, what do you think is your strongest skill in leadership that you demonstrate?
Yeah, 100% is coachable. I am incredibly coachable. So this is an issue though. It is my greatest strength. It is also my greatest weakness. Most are, right? So if I look at your greatest strength, most of the time it's your weakness as well. I'm incredibly coachable. So you literally could be like, hey, here's how you can win the Daytona 500, and I would be like, okay, perfect. I could do it. I could figure it out. I would build whatever I needed to make it happen. But that's also the issue. I have to be very careful of who I listen to and who am I around, because I am so coachable that I go, oh, that sounds great. I'll do that. Right. And it'll take me away from the purpose. It'll take me away from what I'm really meant to do on this earth. So I am very coachable as a good thing and a bad thing. And so I do a very good job of keeping boundaries around me, making sure I'm not listening to people, making sure I am listening to people. That's another important one, making sure I'm reaching out to the right types of people. That would be my biggest and best skill, is my ability to be coached.
Yeah, I think mine, it's funny that you say like sometimes your greatest skill is also your greatest weakness. Mine is like, I have a really strong sense of purpose. And that's good, right? It's good. It's not, I am a passionate person, but at work, I have this really strong sense of purpose. This is what I need to accomplish. This is what I need to do. But sometimes it's so strong that I can't see a little bit outside my purpose. What are other people's purpose?
Or you'll neglect other things or yourself, right? So one of my favorite things from Jim Rohn is true leaders understand how to straddle the fence of ambition and content, right? And I love this because what's happening right now is people are coming on two sides of the fences. They're just like content and they're like, fine, this is my year. Or I talked to a lot of people who were like, I made 2020 my best year ever. And I just struggled and I worked 20 hours a day. And I'm like, that's a problem too, y'all. So what we want is, how are you in this new world being ambitious and content at the same time, focusing on your purpose, for example?
Yeah, especially when you're working at your dining room table or you're, doing all those things. It's hard to find that good,
kids are
blend.
like, blah, 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 and they're just like, kids are slapping peanut butter on your face. Yeah, AKA what happened this morning. So
yeah, I keep sharing with people, especially my team. There's the famous Winston Churchill quote, and I won't get it perfectly right now, but he's in a really challenging time, and he talks to his troops and he talks to his leaders about, when we get through this, will we look back and see it as our finest hour? And so that's one of the things that I keep trying to think is, if we get through this hard time, will we be able to look back and say, gosh, you'll be able to say, I pivoted, and now look, I've got all these virtual programs. I can sleep in my bed at night. I can get peanut butter smeared on my face because I'm not in a hotel eating breakfast, all of those things.
Yeah, it's been so good in some regards, right? First off, I'd like to give you this tip. Anytime you don't know a quote, for any of us who are on the call, all I say is to paraphrase what Winston Churchill would say. So instead of being like, I don't know the quote, it'll be a good one for you next time. I use it all the time. You're going to hear me be like, that fool does not know what he is saying. So
now I'm clued in. Now I'll totally, I'm onto it.
But what's really been good for me, like COVID's been legit hard for me. My sister got it really bad. My aunt got it. One of my aunts just died and her husband had it, so she couldn't even say goodbye to, it's been devastating. But then on the other hand, it's also been really good. Like, it's opened my eyes to, I don't want to travel as much. I want to be home more. I got to garden this year finally. Like, I got to do things that I've been, I paraglide. So I finally get to paraglide more ever in Colorado, the state that I love paragliding in more than ever. So it's like this huge, yes, devastation, but this also huge realization that good things have come from it. And I said this yesterday too, and I know there are people who are on the call from yesterday. I also want to say this today because it's an important reminder for me, is it's okay to have your worst day and your best day in the same day, okay? You're allowed to have a crappy moment and the best moment. You don't have to choose, oh, that was a bad day or that was a good day. You're allowed to have both. And there's been several days that has happened to me. So yeah, it's been good and it's been bad.
Yeah. So I just heard from my production team, we have a little bit of extra time. So I want to, as Ryan and I will continue to talk, but if you have any questions, you can put them in chat and we'll throw them out to Ryan and put him on the spot as I've been kind of doing. But I do want to talk about a topic that you feel really passionate about. I know you do. And now it's become one of my purposes and something I'm passionate about is giving and asking for feedback. And in these moments when we are more virtual, we're not bumping into each other at the water cooler. We have to be more intentional about how we give feedback. And one way I have completely changed and tried to be more thoughtful is my team member will send something over and it's awesome. Like nailed it, perfect, great. So I used to say, great, send. No. And I'm sure they were happy that I wasn't making a bunch of edits or said this didn't hit the mark, but they want to know why did I think it was great? So now it's more like, this communicates the message perfectly. The design is spot on. This will resonate with our clients, so talk a little bit about some good tips for people just today as they walk away and go, oh, I don't know. Am I asking for feedback? Am I giving good feedback? What are some tips you have on giving and asking for feedback?
Yeah, so the difference between opinion and feedback to me, so an opinion is an observation without a how and or why. Feedback is opinion or observations with a how and a why to it, right? And for some weird reason, I can't figure this out. People hear feedback and they automatically think improvement. That's not what feedback is, right? Feedback is observation with that how and a why to it. So like I used to have really thin skin and I realized, oh, it's because I was soaking up opinions. People were like, you look like a 14-year-old boy and sound like a 15-year-old girl. Like, duh, I know what I look and sound like, y'all. Okay, but I would take it offensively. And then I was like, that's just an opinion of what people, who cares if that's a bad thing anyway? But then what I realized is I make sure every time I give feedback and I listen to it, there's a how and a why attached to it. And if there isn't, I don't listen to it. I don't always implement it, but I'll listen to it. And then I make sure that I'm giving it to, right? So great. That's again, an opinion because it's an observation, but you change it into feedback because you said something along the lines of, this is good because I like the layout. There was one photo on it, so it caught my eye and it was easy for read, which means it'll be easy to digest, keep doing marketing materials like that. Great feedback.
Yeah. To paraphrase a quote that I really like, my daughter will come home. She's 13. She'll come home and say, so-and-so said this. And I will tell her, look, that's their opinion. And their opinion is really none of your business.
Yeah. It's so
Move
hard.
on.
Yeah, it is. Like I really struggled with it for a really long time, like well into my 20s. Like I'm a weird, quirky kid. I've got weird, like I'm weird. And so I thought that weird was a bad thing for so long. And I tried to fit in. And then I realized, well, no, those are people love to tell you what they couldn't do. People love to tell you who they don't want to be, right? They love to give you that stuff. But I like who I am. I love who I am. And here's the other part about it too. I was so interesting in the beginning of my business. I tried to be someone who I thought I needed to be. And then I was with clients who I didn't like. It was so frustrating. I was like, these people really, and it drained me so much. And then I was like, you know what? I'm gonna be me. And you know what happened? I started attracting people who liked me and who were like me and who wanted to expand. And now I love what I do because I'm around people that are open-minded or they're not the same as me, but they're open, That's what I like.
Yeah, definitely. We do have some questions in chat, which is exciting.
Oh,
so
right.
I'll scoot over to those a little bit and ask some. So somebody asked, first of all, where do you get all your energy?
If my wife would tell you, like, I wake up at 5 a.m. I'm like, I got an idea. And she's like, no. She's like, no, nothing before 7 a.m. I get my energy because I really do have purpose. I am meant to teach. That is my purpose. I am meant to do that. And when you are aligned with your purpose and you're happy about working with the people that you like and you're okay with being you, energy starts to flow. Are there times when I'm tired? Yeah. Did I watch Netflix last night when I could have done work? Of course, right? Like, we're not machines, we're people, we're human, but I have energy about this because I like Stephanie, I like FCCS, I love the idea of forward thinking. I love all this concept. So it pumps me up. I'm in my element right now. So that's where I have energy. Yeah, it's me. So find your purpose. And it's okay for your purpose to be finding your purpose. Okay, that's been my purpose several times in my life.
I love it. Trent would like to know, what was the most rewarding give back to the community event that you've done?
Oh, man. Oh, I've done some really exciting ones. I'll tell you one that I might make me cry, but good gosh, it was like such an epic one. It was this 9/11. I am gonna cry. It was so epic. It was the 9/11 one, and what we did is there was this man, and he's called the Man in the Red Bandana, and he saved 9 people's lives during 9/11, and nobody knew who he was because all he had was a red bandana on him. And the story was written in the New York Times about the man in the red bandana. And his mom goes, well, my son always carried a red bandana with him. And then she interviewed all 9 and confirmed that was her son who saved all these people's lives. And so we decided to do the longest chain of bandanas in Central Park, New York. Again, headache. But we did 10,981 bandanas because that's how tall the Twin Towers were in feet, all 4 sides of them. And on the last bandana, the mom tied the last bandana on there.
Oh,
it was a moment, y'all. It was a moment. It was silent and then loud, and it was an unbelievable experience. So that would be probably one of the most meaningful ones for me. That.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I can see how that would be.
Yeah.
But that's why you keep doing it, right?
Yeah.
Because then it's so purposeful. Yes.
It is. And that's what's cool for these is like, I get purpose out of I'm a type of person who likes a bunch of things. Like if you ask me, what do I want for dinner? I'm like tapas, like everything, right? Like I want it all, right? And I'm not the type of person who like wants one thing. And so what I realize is like, I need to design my purpose around that. I don't want to be a cycler. I want to cycle, and then I want to try something else, and I want to do something else. And world records allow me to do a whole bunch of different things.
I do have to know, have you gone on any long bike rides since the world record?
Literally 0. Okay. 0. I got off the bike and I was like, no. I was like, I'm done. 28 was my limit, y'all. 28 was my limit.
Yeah. Well, I saw that was a great celebration afterwards and your family came in. And so that had to be.
It was cool. That was a different one for me. It was personal for me for like accomplishing that. Like really, there was no way in my mind I could bike 28 hours. There's just no way. Or a human in general. Like I couldn't comprehend it. I was stuck on this 12 hours versus 16 hours. Like it was a lot.
Yeah. Well, when you think about a really stressful either goal or project that you have coming up, how do you overcome that? How do you overcome the stress of it?
One of the biggest things that I remind myself of is my job is not to look good. It's to help others get good. And so what happened for me is I used to be stressed out a lot of the times, even like on interviews like this, to be like, oh, I've got to make sure that I present myself in this way that people go, oh, let's use it. Like, no, that's not my job. My job, you could look at me and be like, cool, he's wearing a sweater, or like whatever. And I'm not here to look good. I'm here to know that Stephanie was going to ask me questions, and I'm not here to pump myself up. All I'm here to say is, how can I help other people get good? And the stress goes away. Okay, so really focus on not looking good, but helping others get good. Boom, awesome. The other one is, I don't dress to impress, I dress to relate. And that was the biggest one too, because I used to stress out about what I used to have to wear and be like, oh, I got to make sure that I'm the expert. I'm not the expert. I know a lot about goal setting and communication. I do not know everything about it. That's ridiculous. So I would say those things would be the things that help me not stress out. I don't really stress out much on that regard because of those things.
Yeah, I think we learn that it's just better really to be ourselves than to try to, you alluded to this earlier, just be who you really are. That's the value. That's part of the value that you bring, and you talk all the time about bring instant value. So we've got a few more minutes. If you'd like to share a final thought either on that or on how you get people to take action, we've got a couple minutes for a final thought, Ryan.
My final thought will always be thee. All right. And you don't have to follow my ways of being thee. What I want you to do right now is consider, are you a or are you thee? And for you, what does that look like? You don't have to follow Ryan Avery's A to V differences. You follow your own, because here's what's up. When you're A, you settle, period. You settle. When you are the, you instantly have standards. You instantly say, nope, got to step it up a notch. Nope, going to do this, right? I live my whole filter through the. I want to do everything as the, because the has given me everything. A, you're like everybody else. And especially now, we don't want everybody else. We want the product. We want the service. We want the solution. We want the leader. So it's all about being the.
Awesome. I love it. Thank you. I'm not sure I'll go out and tackle world record, but I am pretty inspired to start tackling some goals with all of this in mind. Sure. Thank you so much, Ryan, for joining us and helping us launch the Forward Thinking podcast. It was such a pleasure to have you on our first episode, and it certainly got us moving forward thinking. Oh. Do you see what I did there, Ryan?
Yeah, I do. I love it.
Up next.
Thank you again to Ryan for being the guest as we launch the Forward Thinking podcast powered by FCCS in front of a live audience at the FCCS Summit.
Thank you for listening to the Forward Thinking podcast powered by FCCS. Tune in every other Friday for more information and inspiration to get you forward thinking.